Tilehurst End podcast
by Reading fans for Reading fans.
Hello and welcome to the Tilehurst End podcast extra in association with the Working in Paper for today, Thursday the 19th of April. My name is Ollie Allen, your host for today's show. I'm delighted to be joined once again by the Working in Paper's Tom Crocker. How's it going, mate?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Just had the press conference sitting outside today, which was nice. So yeah, it's been a pretty good day, I think.
Yeah, nice, enjoying the heat for once in this country.
Yeah, I think it's. But Paul Clement's been used to Madrid weather, so he's quite enjoying it today.
And it wasn't too bad a day last Saturday when Reading faced Sunderland at the Medeski Stadium. Quite a seamless link there. That is the only game we have to talk about this week. Obviously, no midweek game, so we'll take a brief look at that 2-2 draw last weekend. And this was sort of meant to be a game that Reading could sort of pick up a comfortable 3 points and make themselves virtually safe. Because it didn't pan out that way, despite being very entertaining for the large part. And we did take the lead, of course, in the first half through Liam Kelly's penalty after John Donnelly-Bodvast had been fouled into the box by Lee Camp. But Sunderland scored 2 minutes after the break with a wonder goal from Paddy McNair to equalise. And Lee Catamol's header made it 2-1 before Jan Kermorgant rescued a point for Reading late on with only his second goal of the season before a sort of a frantic end to the game where either side could have won it, really. And was this a case of Sunderland sort of being more motivated and sort of providing more of a threat than we thought they would, Tom? Or was this Reading not performing to the levels that they should have been?
A bit of both, maybe. I think last week we spoke about some of the players Sunderland have got. They're still Premier League players, and if they turn up on their day, they can cause problems. And it was one of their better days, I think, by the sounds of it. And from speaking to some of the guys there, I mean, it was a good performance from them, and you could see it was their sort of last chance, really. If they lost that game, they were down. So I think even a draw isn't really enough for them either. So you see at the end, both sets of players were pretty disappointed, and yeah, it wasn't one of Reading's better performances. I think, especially defensively, like you say at the end there, you could have easily lost it, and even in the first half, they could have let in a couple as well. So yeah, it was a mixed afternoon, really. I think there was a few disappointed from some of the players and Paul Clement as well. And yeah, as for Sunderland, they'll keep battling on. I think they've got some players who will probably maybe get some moves back to the Championship in the summer. They've got a decent team, and they showed up at the weekend and made it difficult for Reading. And I think at the end, when you look at other results, it's not too bad a point, but at the time it felt like a bit of a missed opportunity, really, that they could have pulled a bit clearer. But on the balance of play, I don't think anyone can really argue the draw either. Yeah,
we mentioned last week that if Reading sort of got an early goal, and then we could sort of see a similar game to the QPR and the Preston fixtures, where we got early goals and then saw out 1-0 wins. And Liam Kelly's penalty did actually come in, obviously, in the 20th minute, so quite early on. So that pattern did look like continuing, but obviously, McNair's goal was sort of unstoppable. He probably hasn't scored a goal like that before, and I doubt he'll do one again in the future. But you could perhaps criticise Dave Edwards for sort of giving the ball away, and then the defenders for perhaps not closing down enough. But really, it was unstoppable. And I think probably the second goal is probably where Paul Clement will have more of an issue with, and that's because Lee Catamol, really, who's not necessarily that tall, is sort of allowed basically a free header into the box. I think when the free kick is taken, he's actually outside the box, and then sort of makes the run in. And John Swift, who I think was meant to be marking him, sort of just watches him goes into the box, but doesn't track him at all. And we did praise the defence last week. I think we specifically sort of Thiago Ilori and Liam Moore, but certainly, as we mentioned, the frailties are evidently still there. Yeah,
I think those two still had a decent game, and like you say, the 2 goals weren't really centre-back problems particularly. So they got the early-ish goal and then nearly let one in straight away down the other end, but after that it was settling into a similar sort of pattern of, it looked like they were going to try and sit back and maybe try and see it out, and that's how it was developing into. So the equaliser just off the break really livened it up. It was a great strike, and yeah, like you say, that second goal was the disappointing one. Catamol hasn't scored for nearly 4 years, and he had another free header about 5 minutes earlier as well, which he could have scored. So yeah, the fact he's been a chief threat in front of goal shows there's some sort of problems at the back. And yeah, like I say, they could have conceded more, Reading. I think, like I say, that hit the post in the first half. Liam Moore headed one off the line as well, and a couple of chances right near the end which they could have let in. So yeah, the defence is one of the probably maybe the weakest showing defensively so far since Clement's been there, especially at home. And yeah, that's a concern. But then equally, they scored 2 goals for the first time as well, so it's there were some positives and some negatives from it. But yeah, certainly defensively there were a few problems. It wasn't just the goals, but yeah, that second goal in particular, I think they'll be quite disappointed with that, because like you say, Cantwell wasn't someone who should be heading in from such close range, really.
Yeah, I think Minona made quite a few good saves against his former club, sort of perhaps suggesting to some of the fans that they were wondering why they sold him in the summer. But at the other end of the pitch, it was nice to see Jan Kermorgant score, obviously only his second goal of the season after Barnsley away, and he was obviously the hero of last season, obviously with the magnificent run of form after the turn of the year, getting the key goals against Bristol City, Leeds, and of course Fulham in the playoffs as well. And but obviously this season he struggled to sort of recover from that surgery he had in summer following his injury. But he did extend his contract until the end of next season. I think at the time, we're probably quite happy about that. But obviously seeing what he's gone on to do or what he's not gone on to do since, I think what sort of role do you think he has sort of to play in this Reading team until he retires next summer? Yeah,
it'd be an interesting one over the summer. Obviously, it's firstly how Paul Clement sees him in the squad. I'm not sure if Jan will just want to sit around and not play much. I don't think that's why he decided to play on for another year, just to sit around. Yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be a conversation to be had. Obviously, I think he might have come back a little bit too soon from his injury. When you look back at it now, I think he was trying to rush himself back even earlier than he got back eventually, and he hasn't really looked the same player for much of the season. And yeah, it was great to see him come on and get the goal when Reading really needed it. So you can show he still is useful in there if you can get him fit. But yeah, it's going to be one of a number of players I think that are going to be looked at over the summer, because obviously I don't think he's going to be a regular starter if he stays, and whether he'll want to move around to another club now or just try and call it a day. But yeah, he's got a role to play when he comes off the bench like that. He was good. He had a couple of other chances he probably should have scored, to be honest. He chipped one straight into the keeper's hands, headed another one wide. So he was right in the thick of the action, and I think he's a great player to have around if he's happy to be around like that. But yeah, it was great to see him get the goal, and hopefully he can have a similar impact for the weekend.
I was going to say that he might be able to move into sort of the coaching side of things, but I don't think that's really sort of his aim, is it? I don't think he's more interested in sort of the property business, isn't he? Yeah.
I don't think he wants to particularly stay in the game when he gives it up. He wants to move back to France, nearer to his family, and take up a different career path. So yeah, whether he, like I say, stays around for another year and develops his role. I think he's played quite a bit this season, coming on just behind the striker rather than the main striker. So yes, possibly he could do that and just change his role a little bit. But yeah, I think next year will certainly be his last one if he goes there with Reading, and I don't think he's going to be sticking around in football. Certainly initially, obviously you never know what might happen. He might get the bug to come back in eventually, but I think he wants a bit of a break from it at some point, and obviously he was planning to do it this summer but changed his mind, gave it another year. So the decision to be made over the summer for him, but I don't think he's going to be taking up any coaching role anytime soon.
Looking at the relegation battle then, following last weekend, the teams around us, Burton produced a shock 3-1 win over Derby, but sort of still look to have quite a tough battle to survive. Barnsley and Bolton drew 2-2, so both teams dropped points there, whilst Birmingham lost 1-0 to Wolves. It means Reading remain 5 points above the relegation zone, obviously with Barnsley still having that game in hand, but you would hope, Tom, that perhaps just probably one more win would do it for Reading? Yeah,
I think that's definitely fair. It might only be a couple of points even. You have to look at the Barnsley game and add on their 3 points as if they won that, and you're still above three teams, I think. So Bolton and Birmingham still will get above you as well, and I think Bolton play Wolves this weekend maybe. So it's going to be difficult, I think, for those teams to put a run together now to overhaul Reading. On the flip side, if Reading lose all three of their games, I think they're going to be heading to Cardiff quite nervously on the final day, so they want to try and avoid that if possible. But yeah, I think you look at the Ipswich home game is certainly one that's winnable, and this weekend at Sheffield Wednesday is something that they could get something from as well. So yeah, they've got games where they can get points, but I think like say one win I think will certainly be enough, and possibly even less than that. Yeah,
I think that is the key thing. I think obviously even if Reading did lose all three of their games, which hopefully they won't, but even if they did, you're still looking at Birmingham, Barnsley and Bolton all to pick up points to not overtake Reading, and they would need obviously quite good runs of form. I think Birmingham has still got Fulham still to play, so certainly they might look in a bit of danger. But off the pitch on Saturday, the South Stand trial was in action once again against Sunderland, this time sort of with around 150 fans in that small group cheering the players on. You went out the Preston game, Thomas. Obviously, this was your first time seeing the idea in action, but what did you make of it? And more importantly, could you hear them from up in the press box?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so obviously they're quite near to us. Firstly, so it was good to see it in action. But from all accounts, it was sort of twice as big as the first week. So it seems like they're gaining a bit of a following, and I think it's going to be back out for the Ipswich game. Yeah, so I think it's certainly something that's got legs to try and find a way to make it bigger in the future. I mean, it's a bit of a logistical problem with the away fans and where you put them and what have you, but I think the idea is certainly there, and I think there's an appetite for it from the fans, from the players, from the management, and of course from the club as well to make it happen. So yeah, it certainly sounds like it's something that over the summer they could look at trying to make a more permanent fixture. I think obviously, like I say, the numbers have grown just from one game there, and you'd imagine there'll be a few more there for the Ipswich game as well. So yeah, it was great to hear them there, and obviously it's they're still unbeaten at the Medeski under Paul Clement, and you'll see that any support that they can get from that end of the ground, I think, is handy. And it was something that was put to Chris Gunter in the press conference today, actually, whether it makes much difference to the players. Obviously, when the away end's packed out down that end, it can be a help to the away side, really kicking towards their own fans. And if Reading can sort of split that end up a bit, I think that'll be helpful for the players as well, by the sounds of it. So yeah, it's certainly something it's good to look at going forward, and it was enjoyable to watch it on Saturday.
Yep, the players are clearly right behind. Obviously, we've seen Liam Moore this week say that he's going to be paying for a coach for a number of fans to go up to Sheffield Wednesday for free. And there is lots of information about the South Stand initiative on the Tyler Stand. There's a piece on it, and there's also been an in-depth discussion on the South Stand in both the last two main shows of the podcast. So go and check that out. Fans do have the chance to join the group for the final home game of the season against Ipswich next weekend. To find out how to do that, there are details on Twitter. Just follow @Club1871, @Club1871 on Twitter to find out how you can join that for the Ipswich game. Moving on then, and the only real bit of news for Reading this week has sort of come this morning, and that was announced that Farrah Williams of Reading Women has been included in the PFA WSL 1 team of the season. And this does provide us with an opportunity, Tom, to talk about the women's team in general, which we'll in a minute. But briefly on Farrah Williams, how good has she been this season? I think obviously she was a big signing last summer, probably the biggest in Reading women's history, and obviously the all-time record appearance maker for England. And even at the age of 34, she's been very, very impressive this season. Yeah,
she's been brilliant. There was a couple of question marks when she arrived, just what she could produce at the age she's at now, but she's completely developed her role, really scoring a lot more goals, playing a lot higher up, and so Kelly Chambers has managed to get the best out of her, and she's been a brilliant signing. I think she lost her way a little bit at Arsenal and wanted to get out of there, and Reading's been the perfect place for her, and she sparked a few more sort of international players have followed, and it's been it's been the key to a good season, really, a great season for Reading women, and she fully deserves that place in the team. She scored some brilliant goals, which I'm sure many people have seen. She's still in the England setup as well, and yeah, she fully deserves her place in that PFA team of the year, and she's a key player for Reading.
I think it's 168 England caps now for Williams, which is quite a remarkable feat. But it's not just been her. It's not just been her getting headlines for the women. Of course, you've got the likes of Remy Allen. She's got 8 goals and 4 assists this season, and Brooke Chaplin. She's got 5 goals and 1 assist in there as well. And in recent weeks, they've had a couple of really good results. Actually, they drew 2-2 with league leaders Chelsea, and then historically beat Man City 2-0. City in second place, of course. They did lose 3-1 to Arsenal last night. I mean, they sit 6th in the WSL 1 with 4 games to go, but overall, it's been quite a good season for them, hasn't it? And obviously, still within the chance of making the top 3 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think last night was hampered their chance of that a little bit, but it's been a massive year of progression again. They just wanted to stay in the league initially, and then they didn't win. Well, they won 1 game all season, the last proper season, so they've pushed on massively from that now, developed the squad, and they're looking to get into Europe in the near future, and it certainly seems like it's possible now when you see some of the results they get. Obviously, the game last night, they sort of gave Arsenal a 2-0 lead and couldn't quite get it back, but they played quite well after the second half. And yeah, the win at Man City is certainly a standout result. They weren't really getting close to City or Chelsea before this season. They've been competing with everyone now. They can seemingly beat anybody. So yeah, it's been really enjoyable to watch them, and that they seem to be going from strength to strength. I'm sure they'll pick up a few more players over the summer and try and push on towards that top 2 in a European spot the next season, which I think is achievable now.
I believe they are playing at the Madsad sometime soon, aren't they? I think.
Yes, playing Liverpool on the 12th of May, so it's the week after the men's season finishes. So hopefully get a decent crowd down for that one. They played a cup game there a couple of months ago, but this is a proper league game against Liverpool, a good side. So yeah, it should be a really good game, and I'd say hopefully a decent crowd on the 12th. Yeah,
get down to the Madsad to cheer on actually a good Reading team this season. They face Everton this Sunday, so look out for that. Whilst of course the men's team travel to Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday, so we'll preview that one now. And Sheffield Wednesday themselves were in a bit of relegation trouble earlier in the season, but have pulled away from danger in recent weeks. I think a run of 3 wins in a row over the Easter period were quite key. And I know Paul Clement has said that every team always has something to play for, but is it perhaps better that this is no longer a fixture sort of in which Reading are facing a side also threatened by relegation, where sort of dropping points would have been even more costly?
Yeah, I suppose when you look at it from that angle, I mean, it's, say, Sheffield Wednesday have been a good side in the Championship for a few years, and they've just dropped off this year, and obviously had a change of manager. It's been a bit of turned into a transition year for them, but they're always a good side. You look through their team, they've got plenty of good players in there, but yeah, like you say, you never know. Lots of these teams, when the season's over for them, they do sort of momentum drops from them, and the motivation, and teams can take advantage of it. So yeah, I think it's certainly a fixture Reading might have picked out as one where you might fancy an away trip there. It's obviously a good place to go. They've had a great day there last year, which pretty much secured their playoffs, if I remember rightly, with Adi Popper's late goal there. So maybe some good omens there. Yeah, but like you say, it's a bit less pressure on Sheffield Wednesday. There's a little bit less pressure on Reading after the point last week. So hopefully that can make it for another decent game, and one that Reading I think will fancy the chances in.
Yep. Wednesday, of course, were in the playoffs with Reading last season, so they've undoubtedly underachieved this campaign as well. I think Fernando Forestieri and Barry Bannon have only just returned after long-term injuries, so that obviously hasn't helped them, but there's still a lot of quality in that side. Gary Hooper, who is injured, he's got 11 goals this season, as does Ali Nuihu, he's got 11 as well. Lucas Zhao has 9, and Jordan Rhodes has 7, so there's plenty of talent in that squad, and so by no means it will be an easy away day for Reading, especially considering they lost 3-1 obviously at Hillsborough in the FA Cup in January. Yeah,
absolutely. Like I say, they've got plenty of strikers there you've reeled off, but yeah, they've got a lot of quality in that team, absolutely, and it's a lot like nearly every team in this league. You look at it, and on their day they can probably produce something, but there's a reason they're down in the bottom half and they've struggled this season. But I think when Reading went up there in the FA Cup, they are both pretty much on the same place in the league, and not too much has changed since then. Obviously they've pulled away a little bit, but if Reading go up and there and win, I think the gap is reduced quite a bit, and then it's they're both just sort of mid-table then, and yeah, it's a winnable game. Two teams who will definitely want to be up near the playoffs again next season, I think, and yeah, I'm sure plenty of those Sheffield Wednesday players will be sticking around to try and help them get up there, because they're certainly good enough.
As for the Reading team, as expected, John Swift came in to replace Leandro Bacuna, suspended last weekend. But other than that, the squad was largely the same from the defeat at Fulham. Do you think we'll be seeing a similar sort of 18 again? Yeah,
I think it will be the same 18 unless he decides to bring George Evans back in. But I think it's likely to just be the same as it was. Nobody's coming back and nobody's dropped out. So, I mean, that's not really been the case for the whole of the season. We might get an unchanged team possibly, which, I don't think we've had too many of those. But yeah, as I say, a few of the guys are getting closer. Tommy Elphick getting a bit closer, and McShane and Joseph Mendes. But it's they might be back for Ipswich possibly, but not for this weekend. And I think now it's a pretty settled side who are doing okay, and you don't really want to change that unless you have to, I don't think.
You mentioned Evans there. Obviously, we saw Andy Renamoto come onto the bench at the expense of George Evans last weekend. I think Clement said that was because Renamoto could cover it right back with Bacuna suspended. Do you think that means we could be seeing Renamoto on the bench sort of until Bacuna is back on the last day? Yeah, it certainly sounds like that's a possibility. It makes logical sense when you look at the people they had on the bench, and they also had Tyler Blackett on there who can play at centre back, and Joey Vandenberg as well. So you don't necessarily need George Evans if you've got Renamoto who can play wing back. I mean, he's going to be another one to have a look at over the summer, Evans, because if he's not in the team now and he's not getting in the squad, he might have to look elsewhere. But which would be a shame, because I quite like him. But he's struggling to get in the team at the moment, and it doesn't sound like he's going to be involved again at the weekend. Like I say, it sounds like it's going to be the same 18. Certainly whether a couple of them switch from the bench to starting, I'm not sure. But yeah, certainly sounds like it's going to be the same sort of squad. And obviously, if it's sort of similar, sort of leaves 2 games left for the likes of Paul McShane, Tommy Elphick, as you mentioned, and Joseph Mendes to sort of make an appearance. Do you think what is the likelihood we will be seeing any of them against Cardiff or Ipswich? I
asked about Tommy Elphick today, because obviously he hasn't played for a long while now, but Paul Clement is fairly hopeful he can make an appearance before the end of the season. I mean, it's obviously he is only on loan, so what the incentive will be to get him involved, I'm not too sure, but yeah, he's sort of doing some training, I think, and he is getting closer to it. I think Mendes is in training, play for the 23, so he's someone I think his contract might be out this summer. I need to check that, but this summer or next summer, so he's going to be one who want to make an impact as well. And yeah, I think McShane's still not quite back in training. I know he said in his programme notes, I think last week, he wanted to make it back for the Ipswich game, but I'm not sure if maybe it's a little behind schedule now. But yeah, I think there's a possibility he'll play before the end of the season. All 3 of them might get a show before the end of the season, but you can't imagine it'll be as a start or anything now, given the form of the team, certainly at home, and I don't think they want to bring in someone who hasn't played for such a long time and start them, so it'll be a reduced role if they are to play, I think.
I'd imagine it may well depend whether Reading secure safety or not as well. I'm not sure whether you want to chuck in a sort of a half-fit Paul McShane just for the sake of it, if we are still needing a point or something against Cardiff on the last day. In the Prediction League, though, Tom, the title race is going right down to the wire, as Westy is now level with you on 27 points at the top of the table after he got 2-2 against Sunderland spot on. So think carefully, as every single point matters now. What are you going to go for this weekend? Yeah,
it's been a struggle to pick one this weekend, actually, especially now it's level at the top. But yeah, I think I'm going to sit on the fence and go for a draw. I think I'm going to go for 1-1. Obviously, they haven't picked up a point away yet under Paul Clement, but I think they've got a bit more motivation maybe than Sheffield Wednesday. And I think they'll go there and get a point, which will pretty much keep them safe, I think. So yeah, I'll go for 1-1 and hope for the best.
I've also gone for a 1-1 draw. I don't think a point, it certainly wouldn't be a bad result. And I think any point sort of edges us closer to safety, and obviously we'll have to keep an eye out to see how the teams around us do as well. Rounding off the show then, Tom, what can we look forward to on the working in paper in the coming days?
Yeah, so like I say, we've spoke with Paul Clement and Chris Gunter today, so we'll have stuff from them up over the next couple of days, and Simeon's column will be up as well. It's just to have a look at who might be in the running for Player of the Season. Not that there's too many candidates, but yeah, that will be going up as well in the next few days. That'll be up online, and I'll put it on Twitter at Tom J. Crocker as well.
Fantastic stuff. Thanks as ever for joining me this week.
Nice one, thanks Ollie. No
worries at all. And of course, stay tuned for tilesden.com as well. We'll have full pre and post match coverage of the trip to Sheffield Wednesday. Also, we've also had a piece on Charlie Hurley up this week. Hurley managed Reading in 1970s. So if you want to relive some memories from that era, that's a great read. It was way before my time, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. So, as for the podcast, there will unfortunately be no main show next week as Mark is away, but myself and Tom should return next Thursday to look back on the trip to Wednesday, round up all the latest news, and then preview the final home game of the season against Ipswich next weekend. Until then, though, thank you very much for listening to today's show, and come on you R's.
Get social with the boys.
Find them on Twitter
at the Tilehurst End
and facebook.com/the Tilehurst End.